All right, and then we're on to the final weakness that our authors have brought up here in the evidentialist model, and that it underestimates the human factor. Oh. Well, both classical and evidentialist apologetics are often criticized for an excessive optimism in assuming that unbelievers are willing and able to examine the evidence of Christianity in an open, honest, and unprejudiced way. People have their biases, and sometimes you can't get over it. In fact, when voir dire happens for juries, this is exactly what is a step in the process to help mitigate that. Well, what happens when you have to preach to the whole world? Well, you can't just isolate people. You have to preach to the whole world. And so the goal for the evidentialists, non-reformed, is that everyone is able to come in and approach the message of the gospel and accept it. And so how does that factor in when someone who is completely closed off, whether for just good reasons, they've been tortured by bad people in the church, or they've had bad interactions with dishonest people who claim to be Christians, and so that prejudices their way. Well, how do you overcome that if you're just kind of trying to lay out the evidence? What more evidence are you going to stack on top of it that will have this Christian, dove movie moment where they can't do anything other than what's written on the page for them? That seems to be the issue. Well, empirically oriented apologists in particular are said to place too much confidence in the persuasive value of evidences and erroneously assume a stance of historical objectivity, forgetting that the significance of historical facts is, in fact, determined by one's presuppositional framework. And again, you're seeing that a lot these days when it comes to kind of the reconstruction of different periods of history where these are the things that we were taught in school, and the big names have written books on it. Well, revisionists have come through and say, well, it might not be as clear as what we think about when it comes to the Roaring '20s or post World War II or even the Civil War. And so we need to understand that sometimes that objective framework is getting lost in one's worldview and how one approaches it.
Right, exactly. So not only are they criticized for an excessive optimism and assuming that unbelievers, are willing and able to examine the evidence, but along similar lines, our author tells us evidentialists are accused of unrealistically minimizing the effects of sin on unregenerate cognitive and volition, right? In other words, they dismiss or at least minimize the effect of sin on how people think and the decisions that they make. So according to critics, for instance, Montgomery and others overestimate the ability of the unbeliever, in Montgomery words, to understand the factual nature of the world and rationally interpret the data of his experience. Now, they do point out that some evidentialists acknowledge the effects of sin on human reasoning, and they appeal to the common, though, and special grace of God in overcoming these cognitive and volitional barriers, right? But it's there, and so that's a criticism that our authors want us to be aware of. You kind of, unrealistically minimize the effects of sin on the unregenerate. In other words, you're preaching to, as the scriptures say, dead people, right? And you're expecting dead people to understand the facts and that sort of thing, right? And so if that's the case, you need to take that into consideration. And the critique here is that they minimize that.
It almost seems like a certain type of miracle has to happen for those dead men to get up and be able to listen. So
yeah.